Coming up next on KPBS Evening Edition, what would you do with an extra $16 million? That's the question before the San Diego City Council tonight.
And we take a look at an investigative report that says the city of Escondido profited from state-funded DUI checkpoints. KPBS Evening Edition starts now.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us. I'm Dwayne Brown.
And I'm Amitha Sharma, in for Joanne Farian.
Tonight, San Diego City Council is considering what to do with an unexpected budget surplus. Last month, Mayor Jerry Sanders announced a possible surplus of $16.5 million from tax revenues that were higher than expected. Sanders wants to use the money to boost city services. His proposal includes replacing San Diego's aging fire alert communications system, adding more police recruits this spring, and longer hours for libraries and recreation centers. Sanders also wants to put about half of the surplus aside as a reserve in case the revenue picture changes.
This week, regulators are expected to order a huge cleanup of San Diego Bay. The 5-year cleanup job is intended to remove 143,000 cubic yards of toxic sediment that's built up over decades. The dredging is expected to begin in September. It could cost up to $70 million to remove the lead, arsenic, and other pollutants.
Plans for an earthquake study at the San Onofre nuclear power plant have been put on hold tonight. Southern California Edison wants the okay to pass the cost of the study on to its customers. The $64 million study would survey hidden quake faults near the plant north of Oceanside, but the State Public Utilities Commission has to approve Edison's request.
Researchers at the Salk Institute say they've learned how some forms of chemotherapy kill cancer cells, and they say that could lead to better treatments. They were studying a basic part of a cell called a telomere, which is like a protective cap on the cell's chromosomes. The researchers found some chemotherapy drugs damaged the telomeres of cancer cells, making them send out a molecular signal that kills the cells. They say the discovery could lead to combinations of medicines to treat cancer.
Response. So basically you're hitting the same cell just from two different directions, and that hopefully will increase the chance of really killing all of the cancer cells.
The researchers say up to now it wasn't clear why some commonly used chemotherapy drugs like Taxol worked.
The Escondido Police Department is the only one in the country to partner with federal agents to catch undocumented immigrants at DUI checkpoints. While some neighbors support the program, immigrant rights activists say it's created fear Latinos are being illegally targeted. The story is reported by documentary filmmaker John Carlos Frey with research support from the Investigative Fund at the Nation Institute.
For the past few years, tension has been rising in the city of Escondido. Latino leaders and activists believe DUI checkpoints in the city double as immigration checkpoints and target the Latino community. The police department and city leaders state that the checkpoints are making the streets safer. Bill Flores, a retired assistant San Diego County sheriff and resident of Escondido, has led the charge against the police department and the checkpoints.
The Escondido police was becoming an agent of the immigration authorities, and that's what destroyed the relationship between the Latino community in this city and the Escondido Police Department.
The Escondido chief of police says that he's a friend of the Latino community and has worked to build bridges.
Like I said, we've tried for many years to reach out to the immigrant community because they shouldn't have to fear their government. They shouldn't have to fear their police. We're here to protect them as much and just the same as anyone else.
ICE asked the local law enforcement agencies if they can station ICE agents in their headquarters, and not one of them took them up on their offer, except Escondido.
Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents, also known as ICE, have an exclusive agreement with the city of Escondido known as Operation Joint Effort and have their office within the Escondido Police Department.
It is clear from this close relationship that the goal of the Escondido Police is immigration enforcement. It's not a prioritization of the most important public safety issues in Escondido.
The DUI checkpoints are funded through a grant by California's Office of Traffic Safety, and according to Escondido Police, the state-funded checkpoints are intended to reduce the number of people killed and injured in alcohol-involved collisions. None of their documents publicizing the DUI checkpoints indicate that they will be checking immigration status as well. The chief of police admits that he uses the DUI checkpoints as an opportunity to check for immigration status.
It's possible for somebody at the checkpoint to get stopped, to be suspected of being illegal, and we'll notify ICE. We ask ICE to be available.
Dozens of citations obtained from Escondido police reveal immigration agents are notified during traffic violations and checkpoints.
My name is Carlos Ronquillo. I'm a retired police officer with the City of San Diego, and I'm a resident of the City of Escondido.
Carlos Ronquillo witnessed a woman being detained and questioned during an Escondido checkpoint.
She didn't have a driver's license. She had a very small child with her, a little girl. I believe she was about 4 years old. Later on, I realized that the officer had made a determination that she needed to be arrested, and because she was undocumented.
I spoke with Leticia, who was stopped at the checkpoint. She asked me not to use her real name for the protection of her family. She had lived in Escondido for 10 years with her husband and U.S. citizen children. She said, I was disoriented and confused. I didn't know what was going to happen to me.
She says, I haven't done anything wrong. I just took my kids to school. I was going home. I got pulled over, and now they're going to deport me.
I had never been separated from my children before, ever.
I stayed with her all the time until she was handcuffed, put it inside the back of a patrol car, and driven away.
Leticia was deported the same day that she was pulled over at the checkpoint. Since she could not produce a driver's license, her immigration status was checked. She was separated from her family and deported to Tijuana, Mexico, where she now lives and works in a factory for $70 a week. According to Escondido police, it is required by the Office of Traffic Safety to check for a valid driver's license at a DUI checkpoint.
It's a requirement of the grant that we do this.
You are required to ask for do a sobriety check and
a driver's license check. That's under the grant. That is a requirement for us to receive the funding to do these checkpoints.
The Office of Traffic Safety states otherwise. There is no requirement. We do not penalize a grantee for not checking a driver's license. For every drunk driver found at the checkpoints, on average, 10 unlicensed drivers are cited, and hundreds of undocumented immigrants are deported from Escondido each year. The chief of police claims that only undocumented immigrants with a criminal history are turned over to immigration authorities, but the police department refuses to release the names of deported individuals and their crimes.
They want us to stop the checkpoints because it's such an easy way to catch someone driving without a license.
The Supreme Court has tried to make clear that checkpoints should be used in a limited fashion. Escondido is misusing both state funding and the intent of these laws restricting checkpoints to conduct immigration enforcement.
Amitha has more on this story with her guests at the Evening Edition Roundtable.
Joining me now are John Carlos Frey, who wrote an investigative piece on Escondido's partnership with ICE. He did so with funding from the Nation Institute, and Escondido Police Chief Jim Mahar. John, let's start with you. Tell us what happens on the financial side of this program. Once the cars were impounded in the past from these unlicensed drivers, what happened? What fees kicked in? Who profited? How much money was made?
We took a look at three different distinct areas. One, the City of Escondido receives grant money from the state of California to run the checkpoints. Two, they receive money from impound fees, which they charge the vehicle owners. And three, they make money from tow contractors, tow companies that actually tow for the City of Escondido. And in all three areas, we found discrepancies in their own documents. We obtained spreadsheets and information from the tow companies themselves via the contracts. And we took a look at a padding of expenses and reimbursable cost, which seemed exorbitant.
Now, I should say, up until the start of this year, these cars were subject to a 30-day mandatory impound. That is no longer happening. Jim Mahar, to implement this program, you received $350,000 from the state's Office of Traffic Safety. Under the terms of the grant, you're not supposed to profit from the program. Your department receives $450,000 annually from towing companies who participate in the program. According to a department report released last year, it shows that towing expenses included bulletproof vests, weapons, wear and tear on cell phones. Why do you need bulletproof vests for a towing program like this?
Well, because it's standard equipment that the officers wear, bullet-resistant vests. As far as John's statement that in all three categories he found padding, you know, the fact is the OTS grants, we lowered what we charge people at the OTS grants because some of the cost to us is reimbursed from the state, the federal funding. So what we've done actually is admirable. You know, we went from $180 down to $100 only at our OTS grant-funded checkpoints.
But why did you lower those expenses?
Because I thought it was fair. I thought it was unfair that it costs us $180 to tow a car, you know, with officer's salary and benefits and equipment, but we're reimbursed about $80 of that from the state. Now, I'm not aware if other agencies in California have done the same thing where they have a second lower fee for their OTS grant tows, but we do because it just seemed to me it was the right thing to do. Why should you get charged for the officer's salary if your car is towed at a checkpoint when we're also being reimbursed from the state? It was just wrong, so we, as soon as I realized it, we stopped it.
So after reading John's piece, the question has to be asked, is the Escondido Police Department illegally profiting from this program?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. We like every other law enforcement agency, we have to provide an accounting of what our cost is, right down to the Xeroxing of reports, the work for the records clerk, the tow liaison, etc. And based on that, and I don't control that, it's not something the police chief sets his policies by. The revenue that we bring in or don't bring in is not my concern. You know, my concern is making the road safer. And so I don't have anything to do with whether or not we make a profit or don't make a profit.
The ACLU is calling for an independent audit of this program. Would you be willing to open up the department's books to auditors?
We don't have books. we don't have the books that you're talking about. If they want to know what our contracts are, we can give them that. If they want to know what we use to justify the cost for the tow contract, of course we will. You know, and they know that they can have that through Public Records Act requests, but they don't need to do that. Just ask for it, we will give it to them.
Chief Mahar, Escondido Police Department is the only police department in the country that has partnered up with Immigration, Customs, and Enforcement at these DUI checkpoints. What was the thinking behind creating this partnership?
Well, the thinking basically was to make the city safer. And I think anybody that understands what that partnership is, without all the rhetoric and the slanting, would know that it does make the city safer, and that's why we received the national award from the ICE director, John Morton, back in Chicago in October. Basically, our policy is this: the ICE officers work with us. They don't go to our checkpoints. They don't drive in our police cars, because there is a concern about the perception of the community. But what they do is, if we encounter someone who we can legally detain and we suspect is in the country illegally, if they have a criminal conviction, then we turn them over to ICE and they get deported. In many other locations, in fact, in most other locations, someone, let's say, who lives next door to you, who's been convicted of burglary or child molest or worse, if there is worse, could do their time, be deported, return to this country illegally, and remain here. You can't do that in Escondido.
John, most police departments conduct their checkpoints at night. Based on your investigation, when is Escondido Police conducting these checkpoints, and what are they finding? How many unlicensed, undocumented drivers are they finding versus drunk drivers?
There are no real statistics about undocumented immigrants and how many are deported from the city of Escondido. At least they've not been provided to me. The city of Escondido runs the OTS-funded checkpoints as required. They start at 6 p.m. at night and they finish somewhere around midnight. But the city of Escondido does participate in other checkpoints that are funded by themselves. And some of those are vehicle safety checkpoints where they also do check for a driver's license. And that is during the daytime, and it can be during the morning hours at their discretion. As far as the funding is concerned, the documents that the chief has suggested that he would give to the ACLU, he has not provided to me. Through public records requests, I have repeatedly asked the city for documents about tow contracts, about the impound fees. If you ask the chief when he reduced that $180 fee to $100, it's within the past year. They've been running OTS checkpoints for the past 8 years. That fee should have been reduced a long time ago.
Chief Mahar, John says he's asked for certain documents and hasn't received them.
He hasn't asked me. I've had phone conversations with John over the months. He's never made that request to me or to our community outreach liaison, who was specifically asked to be the liaison with John to help him anything he needed for this documentary, etc. And I want to point out to you, too, here's the proposal for this, and it says, a nationwide media advocacy campaign to raise awareness about the discriminatory and racially motivated practices of the Escondido City Council and the Escondido Police Department. Clearly, this was not an unbiased investigative journalism piece. This gentleman came in here with the intention of finding this to be discriminatory and racially motivated and to further divide our city. And that's something that I'm very much upset with, because we work hard to keep our city undivided. And these kind of stories are what makes it so difficult for us.
Two really quick questions. Would you be willing to provide him those documents now? And John, does your request for information characterize some bias?
I'm not sure how numbers can be biased. My reporting is specifically on the dollar amounts that the city of Escondido has obtained through checkpoints, through OTS funding, through the impounding of vehicles. It's fact-based. If they would like to refute my findings on the basis of fact, I'm happy to take a look at the documents that they would provide me. If I've made errors in my reporting, I'm happy to correct them. These are numbers. These are dollar amounts. There's no racial bias in a bottom-line dollar amount. The city of Escondido has increased their labor charges to tow cars 600% from 2007 to 2011 without explanation. And I have the document that proves that. That's from their own documentation, not mine.
Chief Mahar, I want to jump ahead a little bit to public policy. In the past, Escondido has come under fire for unfairly targeting Latinos by some groups. In 2006, they implemented a policy that would require landlords to ask for proof of legal residency before they rented to people. How would you characterize your department's relationship with the Latino community?
Our relationship is excellent. I think that's pretty apparent by the fact that since I've been chief, our Latino population has grown from a minority population to a majority population. Secondly, none of the things accuse us of being, or are accurately accusing us of targeting Latinos. The rental ordinance and other issues were aimed at illegal immigrants, not at Latinos.
And Chief Mahar, again, so are you willing to provide the documents that John is asking for?
Yeah, I mean, I suspect we already have, since he has charts and documents, but anything he claims he hasn't had or has been given it as he asked for, of course we give it to. We have nothing to hide.
The police department actually told me that documents don't exist, and I'm happy to provide the chief with those emails that came back from the police department saying the documents do not exist.
Well, if he's regarding the document where we lowered the fee, there probably isn't a document for that, because they just directed that because I thought it was fair. And I would turn to John and say, before you criticize us for not doing it sooner, answer this question. How many other agencies charge less for OTS-funded impound fees than they do for others?
We're not talking about any other
And
agency.
gentlemen, we're going to have to end it there.
Thank you.
For nearly a decade, one man has been tackling a thorny problem in San Diego. It's literally a thorny problem for bicyclists. Meet the man who's crusading against it in just a moment. Plus, Boeing goes green with its newest jetliner. We'll take you aboard the Dreamliner. This is KPBS Evening Edition.
I'm Ray Suarez. On the next news hour, Miles O'Brien reports from Japan on the efforts to decontaminate the lands surrounding the tsunami-damaged Fukushima nuclear power plant. That's Monday on the News Hour.
The fabric of democracy, I think, really has worn very thin.
The opposite of poverty is not wealth. The opposite of poverty is justice.
Americans have to fight for the American dream.
Democracy is not what governments do, it's what people do.
This is how we fight back.
Moyers and Company.
I'm Bill Moyers. Join me Friday nights at 10 on KPBS San Diego.
In the last year, KPBS News has been honored with nearly 36 awards. I'm extremely proud of these honors, and I thank you for your support as we continue to serve our local communities with award-winning news coverage in the years to come.
KPBS Evening Edition is made possible by Joan and Erwin Jacobs and by
An aggressive weed has been plaguing Ocean Beach and Mission Bay bicyclists for years, and one man has made it his mission for almost a decade to get rid of it. Tonight, meet the Goat's Head Killer.
There's actually one right there. I'll be darned.
At 73 years old, Greg Geiselman could be on a fishing boat enjoying his retirement.
Because I come by here every month and check it. Right here is a very small one.
But instead, he's been trying to eradicate this pesky weed called Goat's Head from Robb Field in Ocean Beach, a popular biking and running trail near Dog Beach.
And that's all it takes to start the goat head growing again.
Wow. Goat's Head, or Imex spinosa, is a noxious weed, and it's banned in most states, including California. San Diego is the only county in the state infested with this sharp, spiny plant. The first one Geiselman came across 9 years ago was 7 feet across.
They'll go into a tire and give a bicycle a flat.
He said it also used to be a problem at Dog Beach.
I believe it's the dogs that have a lot of hair in between their toes, and it'll get in there, and the dog can't speak English, but he starts limping.
Now that's how Geiselman discovered the problem when he stepped on a goat's head after kayaking nearby. He uses a backhoe to uproot the plant. It's primarily spread by service vehicles driving off-road and across beds of it. Now this retired aircraft mechanic, who rides his own bike 10 to 15 miles a day in this area, has all but eradicated the goat's head from Robb Park, but says he won't go to Fiesta Island, where it's now starting to spread.
My preference is to call it Fester Island because of how much of this plant is there. It's inundated with it.
Geiselman says given a few more years, it will likely be too late to do much about Goat's Head on Fiesta Island.
Boeing brought its newest jetliner to San Diego today. The company says the 787 Dreamliner is fuel efficient and less expensive than other jets to maintain. Some of the plane's parts were made here in San Diego.
Well, I think this is obviously it's a great thing for San Diego. Our business is growing here and has been for the last 15 years. We're going to be a little over a $650 million business this year. We employ 750 people in San Diego. This is getting us into a new market where there's more growth opportunities.
The jet carries up to 290 passengers. Boeing says it will make long-range flights of about 8,000 nautical miles.
San Diego State Aztecs are headed back to the NC2A basketball tournament. The men's team will face North Carolina State on Friday morning. The women's team will play LSU in Baton Rouge on Sunday afternoon.
In just a moment, we'll tell you about a debate over an upcoming debate.
This is KPBS Evening Edition.
Hi, I'm Billy McLaughlin, and I hope you'll tune in for my concert, Starry Night with Orchestra Nova, right here on KPBS.
premieres Sunday at 8 on KPBS.
I love KPBS because when I wake up in the morning and that radio station goes on, 89.5 goes on, I know that I am going to get information that I can trust, that I can respect, that I can value, and I know I'm getting the truth.
I'm Ray Suarez. On Monday, March 19th, PBS and the Washington Times will bring you a live televised debate with the Republican presidential candidates from Portland, Oregon. You'll sit across the table for an intimate conversation. We'll ask your questions and press for real answers.
March 19th at 6 p.m. on KPBS.
Welcome back to the Public Square. This Wednesday, KPBS's Election 2012 coverage continues with a special hour-long debate on the 52nd Congressional District race. We've invited 3 candidates to the debate, incumbent Congressman Brian Bilbray and challengers Scott Peters and Lori Saldana. All 3 polled above 10% in favorability ratings with registered voters in that district. KPBS has set a 10% favorability threshold to participate in the debate. That ground rule has generated several critical comments from other candidates in the race, including John Stahl. Am I to understand that there is no room at the table for a conservative when our national debt is on autopilot to go to $23 trillion? I would ask you to correct this obvious error of judgment. We will be protesting in front of your station over the next few days if this outrage is not corrected. Supporters of candidate Wayne Iverson also wrote to us. Mary and Bob Polito, the owners of Polito Farms in Valley Center, had this to say. Dr. Wayne Iverson would represent a different view than the candidates you have scheduled to be included. You have 2 Democrats and 1 Republican that are basically all like-minded on the issues. Over the weekend, an updated poll was conducted from Survey USA on all candidates in the 52nd District. Bilbray, Peters, and Saldana again polled well above 10% in favorability. None of the other candidates polled above 4%. You can weigh in on this debate about the debate by following us on Twitter, liking us on Facebook, and of course, you can email us.
Tonight, San Diego City Council is deciding what to do with a budget surplus of more than $16 million. Mayor Sanders wants to increase city services while still putting about half of the surplus aside as a reserve. A plan to remove pollutants from San Diego Bay is expected to get approval from regulators this week. Dredging could start in September. The job is expected to take about 5 years. And researchers at the Salk Institute say they found the pathway for how chemotherapy drugs work. They say the discovery could eventually lead to more effective cancer treatments.
You can watch and comment on any of the stories you saw tonight on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition.
Thanks for joining us. Have a great night. We leave you with a look at the forecast.